Serbian bureaucratic machine paying people in northern Kosovo and so on. I think if we go back to before the events of 25 July, there was some very, very limited progress. I think one of the achievements has been the creation of a single Kosovo police force. I know it's flawed. I know that a lot of the policemen in the north were also receiving a salary from the month. But the KP is one of the institutions that is an all-Kosovo institution in which we should be building on. Then my government has supported the efforts of the ICO to establish alternative structures in Mitrovica North. Okay, a lot of them are in the Bosniak Mahala. It's very limited, but I think there are signs that people in the north are willing to engage with, if you like, non-Serb structures more than they were in the past. Now, it's all overlaid at the moment by the tension, the roadblocks, everyone sort of moving back into their lager. I mean, I think my government is quite clear that the position that Serbia has taken over the presence of Kosovo customs officers at Gate 1 and 31, it doesn't make sense even in terms of Serbia's own interpretation of the legal situation. Serbia has always said it accepts, I mean, Serbia rams SCR 1244 down our throats when it suits Serbia. But it's quite clear that under 1244 and under the UNMIK regulations, the whole of Kosovo is a single customs area. So it's slightly absurd for for Serbia to object to the presence of Kosovo customs officers on that frontier. So I think we have to keep plugging away at all this. I think it is true that once we can get the roadblocks removed, we need to do more to get EU-LEX to engage in enforcing the rule of law. That means in particular using its executive powers to arrest some of the Mr. Bigs in the criminal world in the north, who undoubtedly fuel the parallel structures. But I don't think that's not the whole story. You know, most of the people in northern Kosovo are not criminals. They are Serbs who would like to maintain their links with Serbia. And I think there needs to be a lot more thinking here in Pristina, both in the international community and in the Kosovo government, about how to reach out to those Serbs in the north. It's been done relatively successfully south of the EBAR. The same formula won't work in the north because the north is physically adjacent to Serbia. The makeup of the population is very different. But I think getting out some messages, A, that we don't think that the entire population of northern Kosovo are criminals, B, that there are a lot of things on offer in terms of Serbian directed systems of education and health, just as we have in Gračanica. Because as I said, it's a lot of misinformation. Most people among the Serb community in the north think, or have been brainwashed, if you like, into thinking that the Ahtisaari plan means that they will be, quotes, Albanianized. Nothing could be further from the truth. As we all know, Ahtisaari gives some of the best protection for minorities that exists across the OSCE space. So I think there's some work to be done on that front. It's a gradual process, but I think it has to be done by a mixture of carrot and stick.
Okay. That's the streaming.
Last week, the Secret Service Serbia confirmed that people that were involved in the conflicts in the north all came from Serbia, they were not from Kosovo. I imagine that if something similar would have happened in England, this would have been classified as interstate conflict. If France would have done something similar to England. 2 days later, the government of Serbia reported that they have a strong interest in the north of Kosovo because there are 200,000 people living there, 200,000 Serbs, apart from other 200,000 that have left Kosovo. We know that Kosovo never had more than 150,000 Serbs. So my question for you is, how long is European Union going to tolerate these activities and even reward Serbia, saying huge progress made on the way to EU? If you say that the dialogue is crucial to the European Union, and all you say, well, this is one of the conditions to enter it, practically I don't see a proportionality here.
Well, as I said earlier, I think the good thing about the AV on Serbia is that so much of a third of it is devoted to Kosovo-related conditionality. I mean, it's linked to regional cooperation and it's linked to the dialogue. I mean, I really don't know about statements by the Serbian Secret Service. Serbia is heading into an election. People say the most bizarre things in Belgrade at times. People say pretty bizarre things in Pristina as well. There does seem to be some evidence that some of the people, for example, who burnt Gate 1 came in from Serbia. But equally, I don't think anyone here should kid themselves that the people who are manning the roadblocks are Kosovo Serbs from the north. They may get some encouragement from Belgrade, but the reality is this is your population, and that's a thing I feel that sometimes is missing in Pristina. These people in the north of Kosovo, they're your fellow citizens. If you believe in the independence and territorial integrity of Kosovo, these are your fellow citizens, and you've got to treat them as such.
I think we have one question, then we'll go to Brian. We had the student who... You had a question, right? No? Okay, Brian?
I was especially interested in your comments on energy. Many of our students here at AUK specialise in public policy, and they often will take a course called Energy Policy. And my question really is about the approach of the European Union. We are all honestly concerned about the environment, and we're all very concerned about the economy. When we look at the UK or Germany or France, their economies are so strong and robust compared to the economy of Kosovo. Do you think that the European Union could have a more positive response perhaps towards development of power supplies in Kosovo, in that whenever power supplies are discussed, we hear environment, which is good, but we hear so little of how can we bring the best power technology to this country. And there often seems to be an imbalance perhaps, in that to strengthen the environment and at the same time to strengthen the economy, as you said, through a stable, reliable power supply. And I just wonder how you feel. Do you think the EU has a good balance on this?
I think the EU on energy policy is buffeted by waves of thinking in the media and political reactions to it. I mean, we've seen in Germany, the moving back from nuclear power after the disaster in Japan. I mean, that's not happening. It's not the policy of the British government. But these energy issues and environmental issues are the subject of enormous political debate, and I think that gets sometimes reflected in what the EU says. I mean, I'm not an expert in this field, but I think what I would say is it's quite clear that Kosovo, one of its resources is lignite, whether we like it or not. That in fact Kosovo currently has an undersupply of electric power. In fact, if the equations were all put in the most positive way, if we had the upgrading of KEC, it could actually be an energy exporter. I mean, it's always been put to me in terms of World Bank guarantees being the crucial issue, and that's where you have to sort of get the argument across that there is a balance between sources of power and the sort of green agenda, or the anti-carbon agenda. But I think there are, I mean, again, you know, I know Kosovo has very limited hydro resources, but there are some. There's a project I know in Dejani, and I think part of the trick, you may say it's a political trick, is to do as much as possible on the cleaner forms of energy, if you like, to justify the reality that here and in Macedonia, you know, you do need to deal with lignite because it's the only viable option at the moment. Sorry, that's probably not a very coherent answer, but you probably know more about it than I do.
We will go for the last question, a very brief one, please, because we have students who have to go to class at 1 o'clock, so we don't want them to be screened by the classes to be late. Oh, no.
Quick one. My name is Päivi Nikander and I'm from ICO, I'm head of the decentralization unit.
Ah.
And I'm interested in hearing your opinion on an issue which is not ever discussed in the EU progress reports, which is the structure of the government. When we talk about what are the central government competencies and what are the local government competencies, and the competencies in between the ministries, it seems to me that these are the issues which are rather hazy at the moment, still in Kosovo. Understandably, it's a new country. However, they are impediments in terms of the reform. So how do you see, because this is an issue which in progress report is seen as a local competency, so that each, both yours and my countries can decide that themselves. However, that is the obstacle for the reform.
I mean, I think it's a very, the position of local government is particularly crucial here because actually, I mean, it is addressed in the EU progress report in the sense that it talks about the rights of minorities, and I think you can't entirely divorce the question of local government, municipal government competencies from the question of the rights of minorities. We created these new municipalities under Ahtisaari, which seem to be going, in some cases, quite well. You hear a lot from mayors about Pristina sucking back competencies to the centre. I don't know enough about that, whether that reflects the lack of money available to municipalities. Sometimes the complaint comes from a mayor who is not from one of the parties in the governing coalition and thinks that he's being discriminated against. But then that happens in my country as well, and happens all over the world. But I think the issue of decentralisation has been one of the key things that has enabled Kosovo to move forward as an independent state. I mean, it's a key pillar of Ahtisaari. So making decentralisation work, I do think is very important, and I do think it relates indirectly to a lot of the issues the EU needs to look at, because it relates to governance, it relates to how money is spent, and so on.
Ambassador, on that note, I would like to thank you on behalf of APA for being here at the end and talking with our students, and I look forward to welcoming you back at APA again.
Thank you very much.